Welcome to Intelligent Artifice, the podcast that helps you become a 10x performance marketer. Intelligent Artifice explores the cutting edge of the intersection of AI, creatives, and performance marketing. Every week, we deconstruct the ad systems behind high performing advertisers using our in house semantic analysis system, BruteForce AI, or we sit down with top operators redefining how advertising gets done in a generative AI world. Whether you're scaling user acquisition, leading a creative team, or building a creative engine with AI, this podcast is your unfair advantage. Intelligent Artifice is hosted by me, Shamant Rao, the founder and CEO of the boutique growth marketing agency Rocketship HQ. You can find out more about us at rocketshiphq.com. Our services are ideal for advertisers spending over $50,000 a month on paid social. Check out the podcast website, intelligentartifice.net, or our newsletter, intelligentartifice.kit.com. Today, we deconstruct Rise Science, a sleep optimization app that has driven over 5 million in revenue over the past year and tested tens of thousands of ad creators. We deconstruct over 1,800 display ads to understand what makes them tick. We use our AI tool, BruteForce AI, to do this analysis and unearth patterns and insights that you can learn from. So in today's Teardown, we look at the exact creative playbook they're running, including headline formula, pain points, identity aspirations, and much, much more. Let's get into this. Right? Let's start with headline patterns of these display ads. They are among the most consistent we've seen across utility or habit change app. The most common is how I found out blah, blah, blah. This also personalizes a data reveal. It makes the user curious about themselves, and that's what makes it sticky. There are other formats like I can't believe XYZ, which adds emotional surprise. There are testimonials, which build credibility. The blank hack positions the app as a shortcut, and each of these structures helps personalize, dramatize, and simplify what could be a cold utility message. The real lesson is to provide personalized data, or at least give the impression that your product can provide personalized data. That's a headline formula to look at. Now, let's look at pain points. Now, Rise doesn't just focus on one pain point around sleep itself, because of course that's the first order pain point, but there are also downstream second order pain points that they really emphasize. They look at exhaustion. This is the emotional hook. There's a lack of control, which builds tension, productivity issues, which are professional consequences, failed past attempts. And this is something we see across a lot of apps that focus on habit change, because you do want to build credibility by acknowledging that whatever they've tried in the past does not work. Again, there are other secondary pain points like the impact on the social life, impact on health, relationships, and career. And again, they emphasize a variety of very different pain points, which expands the emotional range of the ads. Even if you're not chronically tired, one of these will hopefully resonate with you. The key takeaway is to name the deeper cause, because what they don't say is bad sleep. They say, I can't show up for my friends. And that is the deeper underlying impact. Let's now look at the aspirational identity. Now, it's important to note that every good product isn't just a tool. It's a mirror that allows the user to become someone new. And a good ad allows the user to see themselves as a different person. It allows a user to aspire to be somebody else. And this mix of ad creators is rich with different aspirational identities: morning person, productivity master, sleep expert, health achiever, energy master. Again, these tie into some of the pain points earlier, but you talk about the kind of person the user is aspiring to become, right? And it's not just health-related aspirations, but it's also lifestyle-related aspirations. It's not just I get to be XYZ kind of, it's not just I expect to have XYZ kind of health, it's also I expect to have XYZ kind of lifestyle, which is again a second-order effect of the health aspirations. And I've seen this consistently in some of the biggest advertisers, that they emphasize the second-order effect effects, not just the surface effects, because these are the deepest consequences of what a user experiences day to day, week to week. And here you look at the lifestyle aspirations, work-life balance, personal growth, social life, and career success as well. Again, you can see these tie into some of the pain points just as well. You can see some of the examples of the ad: more energy, more productive, promotion, right? And there is a causality that you can see right here. And I think that's what's interesting, that they go into the downstream side effects as well. Now, let's look at the FOMO triggers and urgency. Now, this is not a traditional limited offer. They're not asking you to act fast or miss out on a deal. I think that can be a cliched, and users are tired of hearing limited time offers. And I think it's important to be more creative when you look at and talk about FOMO triggers. For instance, they're talking about time-based triggers, which really reflect urgency to act, which is like, I wish I had found this sooner. It would have saved me so much stress, and then it also highlights results-based FOMO, which is how quickly a user can get a quick win. Talks about social proof. Then it looks at implied FOMO, which is what is the hidden cost of not using this, which again is very subtle, again goes into the second order effects of not using this, right? And talks about, I could have felt this good. There's a sense of regret. There's a sense of wistfulness that these ads emphasize. And again, there's a FOMO that is also social in nature, which is you get to join others. You're not only one missing out. And I think that's also very interesting to see here. Next, let's look at curiosity gaps, which is another lever that this pulls very effective. It's not clickbaity, you'll never guess XYZ, but there are very specific psychological triggers. Talks about data-based suspense, which is I screamed when I found out my sleep debt number. Calculate how many hours of sleep debt you have, right? Which builds curiosity about what is it about my sleep debt I can find out. They use identity discovery hooks, right? Which is like, what is my ideal bedtime, my perfect bedtime? And again, you can see personalization over here as well. They talk about my ideal bedtime. And finally, there are also mystery solutions, mystery reframes. This is why you can't wake up early. The real reason you're tired all the time. That brings up some form of mystery, which is very, very interesting. Again, you also look at the social proof, which is implied social pressure, which is my roommate told me about this. Everyone is talking about this. How Carol fixed her schedule. You're talking about this from somebody else's perspective to provide social validation. Now, let's look at action language and action words, which is also very interesting because action words carry the bulk of the message, right? Because if all you have are adjectives like this is great, this is amazing, the user isn't quite imagining the action happening, right? In this case, you look at the action words and verbs, and that gives a sense of motion, that gives a sense of velocity even, which can contribute to how powerful the headlines can be. So the big action words, how I found out, these are the big ones. Then you can talk about, there's certainly download and try, which is kind of obvious, but then there is calculate or track, which again helps the user think about the work that the app is doing. What's also interesting is this ties into the jobs to be done theory. The user is hiring the app to do a specific job, and to describe that job, action words and verbs are the most powerful, right? And I think that is what's very interesting and instructive here. And what about adjectives, right? Look at perfect, ideal, better, energized, productive. Again, these are the qualities that we want the user to have. These are the qualities that we want the user to take away from the ad and aspire to. And in fact, the adjectives are what carry the aspiration. These are the metrics of aspiration, right? And what's also interesting is that these also imply that sleep, which is the end outcome, can be mathematically optimized. And this is the tool that unlocks that kind of insight. So while verbs are important in conveying jobs to be done and motion, adjectives are critical in conveying aspiration as well. Now, let's get into credibility cues. With most health and fitness apps, most habit building apps, credibility is very, very critical because users need to trust the app, especially when it is something that has as much personal meaning and significance as sleep. And these are the different levers that these ads use to build credibility cues. One, they use specific numbers, X hours of sleep that my perfect bedtime is XYZ. There is something very, very specific around these numbers, and the precision implies accuracy and authority. There are scientific terms, which again implies that this has scientific backing. This is scientifically proven. Time markers are very similar to specific numbers we talked about. The other credibility cues are testimonials. And, we talked about my roommate, my boss, and there's implied social proof there. And of course, they talk about sleep scientist mentions, just created by sleep scientists, proven to work, leading sleep researchers, again, builds right there. And this can be a frequently overlooked lever, which is credibility, right? Because a lot of ads can talk about a lot of value propositions, but not really focus on building trust. And this is something that does a great job of it. So with all of this, as closing thoughts, so what are the takeaways for your marketing strategy based on all of this? Number one, build hooks around personal diagnostics to build curiosity and imply that this is personalized. Inspire users to think about what this ad and the product would tell them about themselves. Number two, use science and numbers to build trust. Use concrete numbers, use stats. Don't say sleep better, say your sleep debt is 17.3 hours. Name scientific phenomena, circadian rhythms, melatonin, timestamps. This precision makes promises feel believable. Next, create urgency by revealing hidden cost. The powerful FOMO isn't about what happens if I don't act. It's about what I've already lost. I've been sleeping wrong for 10 years is much, much more powerful than act now. Next is cell identity transformation, not just feature improvement. You're not just downloading an app. You are changing the person that you are. You're becoming a morning person. You're finally productive. You're in control. And you emphasize how your product leads to a mindset shift or a self-image shift. Then you stack emotional resonance with specificity. You use phrasing like tired of being a zombie, wired at night, useless in the morning. And the more vividly you describe a user's real life pain, the more they feel seen and the more they listen. Lastly, you pair the emotional pain with quantified recovery. We talked about numbers and stats, but you also talk about how this ties to recovery and the results that they get. You talk about the precise number of hours they regained. You pair the emotional arc with, as closing thoughts, what makes this very instructive is how they sell a new identity, a person who feels in control, focused, and energized. They lead with pain and back it up with credibility and wrap it with narrative patterns that feel personal and not prescriptive. And this is what performance creative can look like when it's built for human algorithms. And this is a playbook worth stealing for all of these reasons. If you're building your own creative engine, I hope you found this breakdown useful. Take the principles, remix them for your space, and build your own machine. Thank you for checking out Intelligent Artifice. I'm Shamanth Rao. If you like this episode, please share and subscribe. And for the full deconstruction, including examples, visuals, and data, check out the link below.